Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's David Palmer, the Leo King, celebrity astrologer here at highvibe.tv. And I thought I'd put out a tips and tricks astrology video for people here on my YouTube and on highvibe.tv. And if you haven't checked out highvibe.tv, check it out. We are an awesome lightworker community, which is a video-based network. We also have a lot of other things like community events and so forth. We also have daily videos, my daily horoscopes. We have tons of awesome talent on there, my weekly sun sign horoscopes. There's so much. You can check it out. We also are in app form on Apple TV, iOS, and Android. We got Roku coming out any minute here. But I thought I would put out some tips and tricks for astrology because, number one, what the heck is going on in the astrology community right now, especially when it comes to, I am getting thrown at me. I mean, this is a good thing. Astrology is getting really popular. And so I love it. And I am an advocate for it, especially being a celebrity astrologer that goes on television and is out there and putting the astrology and deep astrology form in all the ways that I do. I love that it's getting popular. But there are some things that I want to give some tips and tricks out there to people because a lot of people are coming into this. It's a lot like coming into a science lab and then putting the coat on and then just start mixing some chemicals, and then they get confused and then they make maybe a wrong choice, or they're confused about themselves. And honestly, they might not know where to go, or they're going to people that are trying to teach them astrology by just only learning about their chart or things like that, when it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, let's just for a second. Number one, have fun with astrology. Continue to play with it. Have a blast with it. It's not going to hurt you, okay? But what will hurt you is when you start having misinformation out there. And now I'm not going to say that a lot of people are putting misinformation out there, but a lot of people are trying to understand themselves through their natal chart, which I would say that probably every other astrologer out there that has actually become a professional astrologer did at one time. But there becomes a point to where you go, you know what? I still don't know everything about this. I need to understand astrology first. And that's the first tip. If you want to understand about your chart more, pull away from your chart. Start to understand what astrology is. First place I'd start with is, do you know what kind of astrology that you're practicing? One, tropical is a very popular form, especially in the Western culture. Two, are you into Vedic astrology? And what type of Vedic astrology? There actually is different kind of charts out there. They have a lot of charts. They have everything from D9, D2, D1. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of different things with the nakshatra systems. There's also, understanding the core fundamental basis in Eastern culture. They have Vedas. They have ways to practice it in a certain way to practice it. But a lot of people, especially if you're like on the CoStar app or you're just looking up stuff online, are probably in the Western field, which is tropical astrology. First thing that I would do is research understanding what makes it called tropical astrology. Remember that when you go look up at the planets, and you're going to go look up at night, when you're looking up and you see Jupiter and you're looking up and seeing Saturn, they're not in the signs that it says in your chart or where it'll say in your transits right now. Also, do you even know what transits mean? It's little things like this. Because in tropical astrology, remember, we are using a different way to access the information of the planets. We are not using the actual planet position from the viewpoint of your eyeballs to the sky. We are not doing that. I know that might sound crazy, but it's a lot about understanding the tropic and understanding the seasons and understanding the sun's relationship with the earth and the ecliptic. This is very important, especially the equator, and understanding, when we reach our peak in the seasons, especially on our solstice points and our equinox points, and understanding that the band around this ecliptic is these constellations and, of course, these fixed stars that have helped create the identities, but also as well, the seasons have created these identities of the actual placements of what we call these constellations. So when we're actually using tropical astrology, we are not using the actual look. We are understanding it from a different form. And I would recommend for you to either, really start to study tropical astrology and inside out, understanding what a geo-based chart is. What are you even looking at? It's called a geo chart. You're looking at the earth at the middle, and you're looking at where these positions are in the constellations based off the tropical zodiac picture. So it's very important to understand these things. It's very important to understand the science behind it as well. Remember, we are on a axis of a 23.5 axis on Earth. There's a 23.5 degree element that is in front. We push in front these planets. And a lot of it is because we are not paying attention to the shifting of the constellations from Earth's point of view, but we are paying attention to this fixed ecliptic, and more importantly, this fixed understanding in tropical astrology that we pay attention to what the sun is actually doing on the 0 point of the chart, which is on March 20th. It's always equal day and equal night. It's at Aries, the 0 point of the chart. There's a lot to understand about this stuff. And I think it's important because a lot of people are shooting me over like co-star stuff. So you're not even getting all your info. It's like, what degrees is your sun? Understanding what the degrees are. There's 360 degrees in a chart. There's 360 degrees around this Earth. There's 360 degrees around this understanding of what we call this zodiac belt. And I think it's very important to understand, of course, when you get into planets or when you get into the zodiac signs, it's important to understand how they're connected. What are the mythology stories behind them? What are the stories even in other forms of divination that understand in mythology that actually create these understandings, understanding these very esoteric, old alchemical, hermetic properties. The one thing about, especially if you go into medieval or even really deep esoteric astrology, is that Mercury is the ruler of astrology. And that before we found these outer planets like Uranus, and of course we found Neptune and Pluto, and then we found Chiron in 77. Like there's a lot of things that got added in tropical and Western astrology. We keep adding things, and there's a lot of things of trial and error. There's a lot of things about understanding where's the data. So using an ephemeris to go backwards. Understanding that in Western astrology, we use things like your progressions. So when you look at your chart, if you don't know any of these things, you're just going to be going in blind. And you're not going to ever really understand it by just referencing a book about like, I have Saturn in the 10th and it's, what does it mean in the book? Okay, you're not, because you're completely trying to like look at a dead body and taking the mortuary and looking at like the death certificate and looking at what they said of like the autopsy and trying to break it all down. But if you don't understand the dynamics of the human body and you don't understand the dynamics of what your job is to find out how that human body died, do you really think that you're going to get your chart? So people keep sending me stuff and then they get really upset when I tell them like, well, okay, that's great. And I have to, of course, guess their birthday, which is easy because every astrologer knows Mars is on a 2-year cycle. So do you know the cycles of every planet? So it's pretty easy when somebody gives me their planet. And it's funny because I live in LA and I've been on some dates where, women will give me their planets. I'll be like, oh, you're born in that year, huh? And then they're like, what? No, you gotta be, no, there's no way. I'm born this year. I'm like, no, you're born this year. You got Pluto here, you've got Saturn here, and more importantly, yeah, you got Mars here. That Mars cycle, that 2-year cycle is pretty easy to help people, especially when you mix it where Pluto is and you mix it and you understand where Jupiter is, because that's on a 12-year cycle. It's pretty easy to kick back and go, that's what year you're born. But again, that's by understanding the data and understanding the background understandings, understanding history, understanding how to even cast a horoscope and understand how to use prediction in the world before you could even understand how to predict yourself. If you can't even know how to predict what's going on in the world, let alone yourself, then how are you going to call yourself an astrologer at this point? Now, this is something that, this is a sensitive subject. This is a subject that's been going around the astrology community a lot lately. And, I've been very open about it, but now I'm understanding why other professional astrologers have been getting a little bit kind of discouraged about it, because a lot of people are getting shot off this information and then they're running to the races and they think they understand their whole entire chart, yet no understanding of the whole fundamental basis of the astrology itself. And understanding the past is very important. We'll take, for example, let's say you were born with Saturn in Libra. Of course, that's the exalted position for Saturn. Why is that exalted? So when you're looking at your chart and you're trying to understand your Saturn, no, it's not just about restriction. No, it's not just about, there's so many other elements. But that Saturn in Libra is important because 1, it's exalted there. 2, because what was it doing the last time it was in Libra? And probably because anybody watching this in 2019, guess what? You would be pretty young to be watching this video if you had Saturn in Libra, because Saturn in Libra came in 2009 and then came back into Libra in 10 through 12, okay? So unless you're born during those years and you're 10 years old watching me, Godspeed to you. But most people that, if you do have Saturn in Libra, you have Pluto with Libra. And that was a conjunction point in 82 and a conjunction point in 83. So that's a powerful, unique thing. Do you understand that Saturn and Pluto next to each other is very rare? Do you know when the last time it was in Libra conjunct? Do you know what the last time that Saturn and Pluto did when they conjuncted, and where and when? Do you know how long that takes? There's these things those are the things that make you understand your chart. Those are the things that make you understand. And knowing history. Being an astrologer is being a historian. Because when you go back to these things, you have to look at where is the world. So a lot of astrologers, or people that love astrology reach out to me like, okay, so you're telling me this, you're telling me that, and I'll be like, yeah, this happened in that year, and da-da-da. Like, well, I don't know history. It's like, okay, well, this is how as astrologers we understand that we know that that planet has got the highest probability that it's going to do that, or that stellium of planets is going to do that, because we have the data to go backwards into 100 years, into 1,000 years, into millenniums of time, and see the actual hypothesis, because a horoscope is a hypothesis based off prior data of what these energies are doing. So if you're going to go look at your chart and try and understand it, and just try and understand like the basic understandings without applying it in a life form, the astrology is a living, breathing organism. Your chart is a living, breathing organism. It is not this dead body that you just study real quick in your room and you read off a book and you try and understand it. It's understanding the whole living, breathing, and understanding of this hermetic understanding of astrology, understanding even why Mercury is there. Why is Mercury neutral? Why does Mercury become a malefic? Why does it become a benefic when it gets attached to certain planets? Why is Mercury the ruler of astrology, especially hermetic, alchemy, and understanding the world that we're in? Why is there a chained, feminine and male energy to this reality? Why is there? Look at alchemy. Start to understand these deep things, because these understandings in your chart are going to be widely different than what a book's going to tell you. Widely different. Especially based off understanding the data and understanding the past data. Another thing is, like, somebody will give me a chart, or let's say they give me their co-star chart, and it doesn't have a lot of information. So of course in my head I do it. I'm like, you're born on this day, because it won't tell you that either. It's very like secretive, co-star, if you don't notice. Like, okay, and I'm not trying to talk crap about them. I think it's cool that they're getting stuff out there. But they're not giving you all the data. They're not giving you your position of the planet as far as your degrees, and they're not, especially when you send somebody like me your co-star data, there's no data there. Like, I don't know where you were born. I don't know if they're using Placidus house system. What house system is being used? How are you gauging the understanding of the house system? And there's a lot of different ways to gauge that. Mathematically, and even if you just use equal sign, like, there's a lot of different things here. So some of these tips are, get off your chart. Go understand, how many years does it take for Neptune to come around the sun? How many years does Pluto take to come around the sun? What is the orbit? What is the weird things? Understanding the weird things that the planets are doing. Why is Uranus such a weirdo? Well, maybe it is tilted half all the way 180 degrees different on its axis point, with its rings going in a different direction than we look at Saturn and all the other planets that have rings. And even every other planet's axis points are not so all the way the other way. And if you don't understand these orbits, or like Chiron, do you understand Chiron's crazy orbit? And how it heats up, and then it cools down and gets to ice, and then when it heats up, all that ice burns off? Or that it goes right in between Saturn and Uranus's realm, which is a very weird realm, where it's the realm between realms, especially in old esoteric and more alchemy-based drawings. The ancients knew there was something outside that realm. They even knew of these 3 layers. Ironically enough, there were 3 planets that were found. And then Chiron, in between that weird layer, is the weirdo, is the bridge of humanity from its understanding of its weird position of being a human all the way to this outer reaching universe that we quite don't fully understand yet, which creates kind of a wounded energy that we are kind of feeling all wounded as a planetary whole, that we don't understand our full roots. We don't understand why we're here yet fully. And watching the orbit of like what it did when we found it in the 70s, 77, you have to remember that it was coming out of Aries and into Taurus at that time. And if you look at the 60s, Chiron was right in the middle of Saturn opposed Pluto and Uranus. Like, if you don't understand, like, let's say you have Saturn in Pisces and you're trying to understand your chart. Like, do you realize that when Saturn was in Pisces after the 90s and you go back to the 60s, it was in the middle of a Pluto-Uranus opposition with Chiron in Saturn, okay? Opposite Uranus. And now where we're at today, and these 50 plus years later, Chiron is now on its way to head towards Uranus. And if you watch the orbit of Chiron, you know, it goes through Uranus's orbit and goes through Saturn's orbit. So, you know, you have to understand these weird things to understand why you have that placement, to understand what was the energy prior for that Saturn in Pisces. Holy Mother of God. It was in opposition to Pluto and Uranus, conjunct Chiron. Do you know what year that was? Do you know what happened when Mars came on top of Pluto and Uranus and Virgo? Do you know what years those were and how those 2-year cycles were intense? And what were the actual activities on the planet that were going on? This is how you will understand when you look at your chart the magic that gives it life. But if you're going to go into the lifeless part about reading a book, and there's a lot of people selling people, come and learn your chart with me, come and learn your chart with me, but no life or no understanding, here's not the talent or the skills. But when people come and then they give me their co-star and I'll run their chart, I'll be like, oh wow, look at this. You were born, you know, the day after, you know, Jupiter went retrograde. So, you know, you're going to have Jupiter retrograde for your whole life, you know? And they go, what does that mean? Well, in progression, or in solar arcs, that's a different thing, but in progression, it's going to spend these 100+ days going backwards. So there will not be, unless you live to 100 and so days, guess what? Depends on how many days, you know, you got to look all that stuff, you get to understand that. And it's like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, that planet will just stay retrograde forever. And where does that rule? What are the rulers of each house? And what planet is homeless? Do you have an interception in your chart? Because people just like blow by that one all the time. If they're running Placidus system, you're going to see interceptions. Even if you run Porphyry, you'll see interceptions. You'll be like, there's an intercepted chart here. There's a karmic situation that has to come to an end that you that maybe you've avoided this. You don't understand these two things. You got to get this understanding of those two signs in balance and understanding that the order there and the chaos of the karmic situations that have gone on in this position have been detrimental. And you usually will see a luminary there. And if you don't know what a luminary is, it's a sun or a moon. Or a node. It'll blow your mind. And you'll be seeing the crazy karma stuff and weird situations of that soul and what's going on. So all I'm trying to say here is that you want some tips? Go learn astrology. Go learn astronomy and bridge those together. Go look up if you're going to be a Western astrology, like, I don't even know if you want to be an astrologer, of course. I definitely recommend going out and researching with other astrology organizations that have tests for you, that will teach you all that. I'm part of ISAR. I think ISAR is great. I have my own school. I have my own certification process. I teach esoteric, medieval, but mainly I have formed my own version of evolutionary astrology. So everybody has their own forms and everybody has their own ways. But you know, we're at a time right now, if this is going to get so big and so popular, and people, one thing, and this is going to be the main thing I'm going to say. I'm going to end with this. Mercury, the reason why it is the ruler of astrology, and even if you want to use the modern version, which is Uranus, which is just a higher octave of Mercury, and do you understand the higher octave of planets? What's the higher octave of Mars? It's Pluto. You know? But the reason why Mercury is the ruler, or even Uranus, is the detachment from emotion. Because when you're an astrologer, or if you're going to look at your chart, you're going to have to let go of your emotions. You're going to see shit in there that's benefic, good. And you're going to see shit that's malefic, bad, that you're not going to want to like. And the reason why a lot of religious people out there and stuff always kind of push people away from this stuff is because seeing both sides and seeing the truth is going to be, it is detrimental. It is like Morpheus handing you the red pill. And a lot of people are very emotionally attached to this life. I mean, in my human design, I really have no emotional attachment to anything in this life. So I'm pretty, astrology is easy for me. It's easy to drop bombs on people. It's easy for me to just say the truth because I care, I have empathy, but I also put my astrology and I put my Mercury first of like, what's the data? What's the analytical? What's the understanding? What's the messenger role here? What's the truth? What's the science say? What's the math say? And I'm going to go directly off that. And I can't change the planets for that person. I'm sorry. This is going to be the gnarliest moment in your life right now. The progress is there. The solar arcs are there. The transits are coming there with an eclipse that'll be on there once in a lifetime. Bam, 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 bam. All these layers. So emotions, if you're a very emotional person and you get attached emotionally to your chart, you get attached to your outcome that you want, and it might not go that way, that's where astrology can hurt people. Because astrology is not good for emotional energies that are not ready to understand the mercurial understanding of the hermeticism that is involved with being into astrology, period. So I'm just here to give a warning about astrology, that if you're going to play with astrology, you better have your emotions protected. I am lucky because I have everywhere in all my astrology and even in my human design, emotions for me, I know how to put to the side very easily. So for me, it's like I can deal with that. But like a lot of other people, if you're going to play with fire, I'm just trying to tell you, you better put on a trench coat, like a fire coat, because it will burn. It will burn your emotions if you get too attached. And when the truth comes out of how this reality works, and this reality is a mix of really benefic moments and really malefic moments. There is nobody who just gets all benefic the whole life. That's a true statement from Mercury. There might be more people who get more benefic than malefic. That's true. I have seen more people that sometimes have that, or some people get more malefic than benefic. And that's where it gets kind of like, this is a very, very intense territory. And you got to be prepared and you got to be ready for it. And I'm just letting this warning shot out after Mercury just came out of its retrograde, and finally this solar, or these eclipses just happened, but more importantly, this new moon in Leo. As the Leo king is somebody to be like, you know what, it's getting really big now. People are all trying to be astrologers now. People are all trying to understand their own astrology. But I'm just here to warn you that if you're going to go to people, or you're going to go to books, or you're going to try and do it on your own, you're never going to be able to just like discern without getting that ultimate truth from the understanding that hermeticism that is so important to understand in all of astrology, even astrotheology, and understanding how it connects with the body, how it connects with the stories in the Bible, how it connects with all parts of life, how it connects with Egyptology, with Horus and the hour and the horizon, Horus's zone, and all these things that we understand about how to bring this all together. The month, the moon, the progression cycle of the moon. Every month that goes by, your progressed moon's moving 1 degree a month. Your solar return chart, your lunar return chart. There is so much here. Your harmonics, there's a lot. And if you're just going to keep researching and looking at, well, I have Mercury in the second house, and that means I'm this way, that's great. But if you want to get to the full understanding, there's a lot of things to do. And I recommend searching great astrological resources out there. There are tons of amazing people out there. If you're going to follow people on YouTube, on Instagram, or anything, if they're doing it, look at how long have they been doing it. Where's their track record? How far have they been doing it? Where's their lectures? Do they have a lecture online? Have they lectured at a conference? Have they been to a conference? Do they have interviews with other astrologers that have been out there, that have published books, that have published aspects, that have been playing with their own theories, that interact in the community? There is a very small astrological community out there that have been doing this work for a very long time, and I'm standing up for them right now. Because you know what? For a long time, I kind of felt like I was not part of it. And to be honest with you, now that things have changed in this astrological community, I feel more that I've been part of it than ever, because I understand and I bless them very much and I honor them very much. And in the past, I have had some quarrels with it, but that has nothing to do with this. And it was actually all squashed, and we all show up as astrologers and we deal with our stuff, but we also do our research. We also spend our time and we put our long-term work in. We have mentors. We have mentors that have been there forever. I have been blessed to have some of the greatest mentors in my life that have helped me teach me astrology, and I honor them in every moment, and I'll honor them now. I've had Christopher Witecki at the beginning. Michael Luton's one of my great mentors. Michael Erlowine's one of my great mentors. You know, those are very powerful mentors to me. And I think it's very important to understand, to have some people that have been doing it a long time and have been working with astrology for a long time. And, you know, I have a lot of other mentors that are all my friends that have been in it. There's a lot of people. This community is small, but there are a lot of great people out there. And I recommend for you to take the time to maybe look at what is really going on here when it comes to astrology, and to kind of maybe take a second to back off your chart for a second and to realize, wow, there is a lot to understand here. Wow, maybe I should look out. Maybe I should research through an organization. Maybe I should start following a real astrologer and not some astrology page, or even, and I'm not going to put it out there, but an app that's just giving you out some crap and not teaching you what's really going on. Because you can start to base your whole life off of, oh, trouble in work today because blah, 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 when that transit happened 9 days ago and it was a minor aspect. So I'm just standing up for people. I'm just helping people understand the truth out there. And if you want to find out more, of course, I do have my school where you can learn a lot of different things. You can go to my website, theleoking.com, or you can go to highvibe.tv and click on school. Anyway, thank you so much for all your support. If you have any questions, I'd love to see them down here below. Check out highvibe.tv as well for daily horoscopes, because when I do a horoscope, I've been doing it for 7.5 years every day. There's over 10,000 video horoscopes I've been doing. So, I'm in the astrology every minute. I've done 100 lectures and toured and been everywhere and am friends with everybody in the astrology community and learned. And I'm part of ISAR. I'm part of the CIA, Cosmic Intelligence Agency, and all the people. And I'm friends with the people at Astro Gold. I'm friends with Michael Erlewine, who did Matrix Software and learned so much from him. And friends with David Cochran, who's doing amazing things now in the community. He's the most technological guy in the world. You want to know these people. You want to connect with these people. You want to connect with, like, Sam Reynolds, who's out there doing amazing, great things. There's so many people you want to understand that have been doing this stuff for a long time, that have been speaking about it, that have been doing things about it, and to really embody in that and deeply, if you really want to understand this astrology thing. Thank you so much for all your support. Truly appreciate it, everybody. Give me some comments down below about what you think, and I'll see you all later.